Hey guys, my name is Jake Chapman. I serve as one of the state chairs for the Apoorva Ramaswamy campaign. I had the privilege of serving you in the Iowa Senate as your president of the Iowa Senate for a couple of years, and that was an honor of a lifetime. But God closes doors and He opens doors, and He really opened an incredible door to be able to be on this campaign with Apoorva and the entire family, Karthik here. And so guys, again, thank you for coming out today. This is going to be a really kind of unique and special type of event where we're just going to have a conversation with Apoorva. You know, when we elect the President of the United States, it's not just the President, it's the entire family. And so we want you to be able to get an inside look as to what it's like to vote for the Ramaswamy family. And my wife here, Kimberly, is also on the campaign. She kind of helps start the Faith and Revival Coalition for the campaign and serves as one of the state co-chairs as well. So with that, guys, we're again going to have a great conversation, and I'm just going to have you guys sit up here, and Kimberly, I'm going to kick it off to you.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Apoorva and Karthik, for joining us today as well. If you all don't mind, I'd like to just open us with a prayer first, just to allow God in the room and ask Him to take the lead. So, Father God, we thank you for today. We thank you for the beautiful weather you've given us today. We thank you for our country and the caucus process and having elections and for the freedom that brings us. I thank you for the people that you brought in our life and the people that you've placed with us here today. I just ask that you be with us, surround us with your love and your peace. Maybe you even meet somebody and they may have an encounter with you today in a way they haven't before. But ultimately, God, I just ask that you guide our conversation and be with us with the questions, soften people's hearts, open their minds to hear. And I hope that people get a chance to know Apoorva and then ultimately Vivek through Apoorva. And just see them in the way that I have. I've often told people that I've met that they're the kind of people that you just want to have over for dinner or grill in the backyard. So I hope that you guys get the chance to experience that today as well. But God, I just turn it over to you and ask that you use me as a vessel and Apoorva as well, and just speak through us and share what you will. And all God's people said? Amen. All right.
Hi, thank you so much for coming out today. It's such a beautiful day and really appreciate you coming. Karthik, do you want to say hello? He may run off at some point. We saw some really good treats here, so. But I'm really excited. I hope to get to know, I see some familiar faces. And I'm excited to get to know the rest of you over the course of this time. All right.
Well, Apoorva, one of my favorite things that Vivek had shared is you guys didn't have an intention of running for president. It wasn't some life aspiration. You didn't grow up thinking he was going to be president one day. But wasn't it actually God that led you guys to do this? Can you just share with us a little bit more about that and what led you to this experience of running for president?
Yeah, so Karthik is our older son. He is going to turn 4 in February. Our younger son, Arjun, is 16 months now. So when we were talking about this about a year ago now, he was 6 months old. So clearly that was not something we were thinking about. We were thinking about raising our 2 boys, you know, getting through the day, getting him to sleep through the night. But after the elections in 2022, we started looking around and seeing that no one was representing how we felt as Americans, as people who were trying to get through the day, teach our sons, be good people, be normal Americans working hard and trying to raise a good family. And there was no one who was fighting for that while still bringing this country together, someone who could actually, people could get behind, someone who people could inspire. And, you know, I've known Vivek now for a while, and I've seen him do things that other people thought were crazy. He has started companies, biotech companies that are now worth billions of dollars when he was just in his 20s, right out of law school. He has started companies that have gone up against BlackRock, some of the biggest industries. And he has done that while keeping his integrity, while leading people, while unifying people. And I know that that person, that man, is the right person for this time. So even though it's crazy and we're taking these kids all around the country, it's the right time for us because it's the right time for our country. And that's really what we've learned through this process, is God doesn't wait for you to figure it out for yourself. He tells you by showing you what your duty is, and then it's your job to follow it.
So Apoorva is right in here alongside with Vivek. But can you tell us, what do you do during the day? What do you do all week?
Yeah, so aside from being these kiddos' mom and Vivek's wife, I am also a doctor. I'm a throat surgeon. I work at the Ohio State University. I do research and treat patients, do surgeries for people who've had cancer and can't do what we're doing today. They have difficulty communicating, they can't eat anymore, and so that's what I do, is I help restore communication and eating abilities to patients who've had cancer. So that's my day job.
So just that. How do you think that will balance out with everything? That's one of the things that I actually admire about you, is your ability to be mom, be wife, be on the campaign trail, be a doctor, and yet you juggle it all with such grace. How do you do that?
I think that goes back to our faith. Our religion always taught us that we have so many roles. You're not just your job, you're not just a parent, you're a daughter, you're a wife. All of those things relate to your duty. And so you can't neglect any one of them. And I think of my job as being my calling. I think of what I do as being extremely important for my patients. And when you think of all of these things as one role, it's not like work-life balance. It's just you fulfilling your own best self-idealization. So yeah, it's not a ton of sleep sometimes, but it is, I just could not, I thank God every day. Vivek and I were literally this morning thanking God for how lucky we are to be able to go through this process with these two children, and it is just the biggest privilege in the world.
We appreciate you. When you mentioned just some concerns that you had for the boys, and I know you guys view this as the time to do this is now. What are some of the greatest concerns that you guys have with what's going on in the world today?
So, Karthik is 3. He's getting to the age where I was in school. I was in preschool, and Vivek and I both went to public schools for most of our lives. And the idea of putting him in public school, having him go out and not really knowing what he's learning, what values he's learning, whether the people around him are going to love him and treat him with respect and as a soul and a human, and whether he's going to be taught that he's less than someone else because of who he is, that is scary to us, and especially as parents, that is something that we cannot tolerate. And so we're homeschooling him for now, and until we feel confident of that. That's why we're in this race. We want to be in a country where we feel confident that when we send our child to school, something as basic as school, they're going to be in a place that is going to help them, is going to teach them, is going to... It seems so basic, but the idea of sending our vulnerable little children to some place where they'll be taught values that we don't deeply disagree is the scariest thing of all. And that was the most basic of so many points. I mean, when you look at the jobs, the internet, even our workplaces, everywhere we go, our values are being attacked in a lot of ways. And it's basic things like all of us are created equal in the eyes of God. It's that everyone has basic integrity in life, and people are basically good. These are the basic things that are being attacked right now, and so we have a long way to go as a country. And I think Vivek's message of restoring this American pride, national identity, but also just the values that we as a people share is so important. You want
He's
to
gonna
give
give
a
a
speech?
Yeah,
No,
what?
you
What
don't.
do you want to tell us about your daddy?
What do you want to say about him, Bud?
Nothing.
Should we let Mom? Okay. You talk a lot about your values, and at an event we did a while ago, I had shared, you know, kind of the elephant in the room sometimes is their faith. You guys aren't Christian, you're Hindu. And I actually had shared, I think that's a blessing. I don't think that we have to see that as a fear. I personally have seen that as a blessing because what that's done for me is I feel like I've learned so much more about your faith because you are Hindu and you're not Christian. Because I think sometimes in the world today, if somebody says, oh, I'm Christian, we just assume that we know what that means. It means that it's not just that they go to church, or it's not just that they pray, or it's not just a title. But that means so many different things to different people. And so because you weren't and you're Hindu, I feel like I have gotten to know on such a deeper level. I think I was thinking this morning about it. Haven't we gone to like 5 churches? Like they've attended worship with us and other people that have invited us to their churches. We pray together through text or on the phone. But I feel like I've got to dive in so much deeper and get a chance to see that, which for me, I feel like that's so much more important because in Iowa especially, I feel like there's a lot of people that we just get overwhelmed with politics or we don't care. And so for those people, I feel like what it may come down to with this election is who you are as a person. And so you might not know all of somebody's policies, but it may come down to who you are as a person and how we see that. And so I do feel like, from what I've seen from you guys, is it is our values that unite us. But can you just tell us what are those I know you mentioned a few minutes ago, but what are those values that you hold? Like what values did you learn and how did you learn those? So, it's a lot of those same 10 commandments that many of us grow up with are what we learned growing up. It's about being kind, being generous. You help others before you help yourself. You take care of your family. You take care of your neighbor. It's really important. And that's really every single day. My dad's also a doctor, he's a surgeon, and he every morning would pray before he went to the hospital that he would be able to take care of his patients. Every night when he came home, first thing right after he took off his shoes would be to pray and thank God for being able to do his duty today and that things went well and that tomorrow it would be another good day. That's how we grow up, that we were taught that every day is a gift, not just for the things we're given, but for the opportunity we have to give of ourselves. And that has been how we learned how to become people, how to be adults, is this concept of giving of yourself. And that's why we're doing all of this, is because we want to give of ourselves for our children, for this community, for this wonderful country we live in. Thank you. Politics can be hard, if you haven't figured that out yet. What do you think, what will protect you guys? Or what will, because I just see you guys as such good people. What will protect you through this process to not become jaded, to not just become cynical, because you guys are filled with so much joy and happiness, and you can just feel that when you're around you guys. What do you think will help with that?
Well, I think the most important part is that we are not politicians. We have not been politicians. I'm certainly still not. And we have these 2 little boys, and that's, when we started this process, a lot of people told us that this is going to be very, very tough on your family. This is going to be extremely hard, and you have to be ready for it. And I think Vivek and I both looked at each other and said, our biggest priority in our lives is these 2 little boys, and there is no way in the world that we're going to let this hurt them in any way. And so that's why we have brought them along to pretty much every single event we can. so that they get to see these wonderful people who also share our values, and they get to learn that strength of being part of this amazing community. And that has really been the best part, is meeting individuals around this country, because that protects you from whatever the news is saying, whatever is on Twitter. That the fact that we are here in this room and we can actually share how we feel and why we are doing this, that's the most amazing thing, and that's really what's kept me from finding this to be a really wonderful thing. And I haven't so far felt jaded through this process, despite being pretty far into it now. Yeah.
That's one of the things that you guys do so well. I honestly don't know if I've met somebody else that handles people that disagree with you better than the two of you, if I'm honest. Like, we've seen Vivek have people screaming at him and he welcomes them into the room to have a conversation, down to walking out and actually helping them pick their stuff up to come inside. Mm-hmm. I was with you at the state fair this summer when a protester was screaming, who I know screams very well, and he was screaming and yelling at us, and the way that you just engaged a conversation, and then when he didn't want to engage in a conversation back, but you handle that with such respect. How do you do that? In the moment, how do you guys do that? Or how do you view people that oppose you and handle it so well?
Because at some level we know that people are good. We all generally want the same things. We want to work hard and have our children lead better lives than we have. And when you think of most people coming from that perspective, you don't feel scared of addressing them on that human level, and that's what we have to do, is start addressing each other on a human level, whether we're a Republican or Democrat or whatever. That is what we need in this country, is to remember we're all Americans and humans who all want the same things in the end. And Vivek talks a lot about a war of identity crisis in our country, and that's certainly true, but he also says that 80% of Americans are on this side of American values, and that's really been the case of what we see. Even when people disagree vehemently on what we need to do next or who we need to elect, at some level we can all be civil and kind and respectful. And so, yeah.
Well, you guys handle that so well and with such grace. It's admirable. Sometimes I just am at a loss for words myself when you see it actually take place in the moment. So we appreciate that. One question is obviously if Vivek becomes president, and just through life and the campaign itself so far, you come up against unexpected things. Nobody ever would have predicted this thing called COVID and the things that will impact lives. And I'm sure you guys have encountered that with yourself, with the twists and turns of things that have happened in your lives. But on a bigger picture, how do you foresee Vivek and yourself, how do you picture handling those unforeseen events? How have you guys handled those things in the past?
Yeah.
What do you do when you don't know what to do?
I think, I don't know if many of you know many stereotypes about doctors and especially surgeons, but one of the reasons why I love being a surgeon is that you are in total control of the room. You can be in an emergency situation, but you know everything that's happening and you can fix it. And I like doing that. I like being able to have a path and make a plan and then have it go. And I don't talk about this much, but when I was a kid, I basically suspected that I wanted to be a doctor. I made a plan. I was going to go to medical school, and then when I was around 22, I would find a good man, and then we would date for 4 years, and then we would get married, and then I would have my first kid at this age, and then the second kid, and I had a plan. And for a long time, by some grace of God, that plan actually went pretty well. Vivek and I met when I was 22, and we got married when I was 26. And then you go into the real world and you realize God has no interest in our plans. He does not care whatever we had planned. And lots of things happened when, how Karthik came into our lives was not how we had expected. When my first few months of being a mother were not at all what I had expected. I had wanted to spend, I had a C-section. I planned on spending time at home with my son, recovering, getting to know this little person, and instead, COVID happened. And being an airway surgeon, I felt it was my duty to go and help people because, whatever has happened in COVID since, which has been a lot of craziness, there was something really scary happening in New York in the spring of 2020, and a lot of people were dying. And I felt it was my duty to go back, even though Karthik was 1 month old at that time. And so it meant that I got COVID and couldn't be with Karthik for 2 months. And that was not our plan. That was not our plan. But it was what you have to do. We do what we have to do. We're called to do at any given time. And, now I think of in some ways COVID was a blessing for us because it taught, and we are, I don't think Karthik and my relationship had any problems, but also he knows that we do what's right when not what's easy or what's convenient. And that's been something that he's been exposed to since he was a baby. And that's really what you do. When something difficult and terrible happens, you think of what is your duty, what God wants from you at that moment, and then you do it. And that's the best moral compass, because you don't know what's going to come, or, we don't know what's going to happen any given day. And you just have your values and God and faith in God to rely on.
Wow. How do you juggle that, though? I know that you mentioned that it's an all-encompassing duty, that it's not segmented like many of us think that we have a work and a family and that we have to balance that, but it's all one. How did you do that in that moment of COVID and being a surgeon and being a mom and wanting to be home? And I mean, some women don't trust their husbands with a new baby to go to the grocery store. I have friends like that. How do you leave them like that? I mean, that's a strong sense of duty.
I'm very blessed to have a husband who is Vivek, who is the best husband in the world and the best dad in the world. He's just amazing. And I know every time, Karthik's been out here in Iowa with Vivek for the week, and he's always number one. Our kids are always number one to him, so there's no concern. So that's first of all, that we are such a good partnership, that I have someone who is such an amazing partner. And second of all, during those 2 months, I did not do well. I was crying basically constantly. It wasn't a pretty sight. We don't have to go into it, but my dad was in the ICU, my brother was in the ICU. It was a tough time, there was no doing it gracefully. But you get through. God gets us through difficult things, and makes you hopefully stronger. And we all get through it, right? I'm sure many people in this room have dealt with very terrible things in our lives, and we want someone in some way who shares those experiences, those real human experiences, because that's what we're fighting for, is someone who cares about those things and not about politics. That's not why we're doing this. We're doing it for our parents, for our children, for our friends who are going through similar things.
So you've mentioned a couple times you guys aren't politicians, obviously. You haven't been in the world of politics. And I know that there's some people that are concerned about Vivek's lack of experience and not having that. I actually think that's a benefit. But how do you, or in the past, how has Vivek and you, how have you tackled instances where you have a big task ahead of you and you might not have all that knowledge at hand and the experience at hand? How have you handled that in the past, and maybe how was it even a benefit?
Yeah, so, right before we were about to get married, actually, maybe right around when we got engaged, Vivek came to me. It was like a year after he graduated from law school. I was still in med school, and he told me, Apoorva, I want to start a biotech company. And, he'd been doing investing, but this was never something that he had talked about before. had obviously been involved in this world and saw how broken the pharmaceutical industry is. And I heard so many times about how it's the worst industry, they prioritize wrong, they charge too much, they take too long, it's terrible. And this time he came to me and said, I want to do something about it. And I said, Vivek, do you want to like work for a company first and then maybe see if you are ready to start one? And he said, no, we need someone who's going to do it differently because all these companies have been doing it wrong and they have been taking too long and the whole system is broken. And I said, okay, if this is what you want to do, I support you. And then he started this company that basically takes medications that other companies have stopped developing because they don't think it's going to make them enough money, or they didn't do the right trial and then they just forgot about it. Or people, one of the CEOs just got bored and decided to go in a totally different direction, or it wasn't trendy anymore. And he systematically bought those drugs up and started developing them. And he had some failures. There was one that was especially difficult for us because it was one that meant a lot to him. It was for Alzheimer's. His mom was a doctor. He's a doctor who treated Alzheimer's patients. He worked in nursing homes for many years when he was a kid, playing piano for patients with Alzheimer's. I've had 5 family members who died of Parkinson's. These are really important diseases to us, and the idea that he found a medication that could actually help these people was so exciting to us. But it didn't work. And that was tough because it was also the first one, and we were worried, where is this company going to go? But he had the right idea, and that company has made 7 more medications, which is faster than pretty much any company, I don't know in history, but it's extremely fast for the pharmaceutical industry, where they have these $150 billion companies that make 2 drugs per year. They've made so much progress. They've made drugs for children with something called DeGeorge syndrome. There's 20 kids every year born with it in America. None of the pharmaceutical companies wanted to do it because you're not going to make money off of these 20 kids per year. But Vivek said that this is an important disease. These children were dying at the age of 3. And now, because of this medication, the majority of them live normal lives, like the rest of us. And that would never have been developed by the traditional pharmaceutical industry. And so I'm so proud of him and what he's done in that industry. And I thought, hey, I'm a doctor, he's gonna be doing this, he's gonna be helping people in this way, and that's how we're gonna, that's the life we're gonna lead. And then the George Floyd and COVID happened, and we saw how companies were being used to make political decisions. And he, as a CEO, was being forced to say things that he didn't believe in. And he came to me and said, Apoorva, I can't do this. This is not what my heart is telling me. This is not what's right. And even though, he had this very successful company, he said, I am proud of where we are, but I cannot do this anymore. I cannot compromise our values. So he started speaking out. He wrote a book, Woke Inc., about how CEOs were being used to do what the government could not do. And that's really when he started down this path. And he stepped down from his company. He started a new company that actually Strive, which actually was fighting against all of these companies that were trying to force your money to be used to make decisions in these companies that, like Disney or other companies, are doing. And so he started this whole different, going up against BlackRock, which controls more money than the GDP of most countries. He started this, and then, last November, December, when he came to me and said, Apoorva, I think I have to run for president. At this point, I give him the benefit of doubt. If he thinks that a system is broken and he's the one to fix it, I basically say, tell me what I need to do because you're definitely right. And so that's where we are. We go, I trust this man and his principles and his moral compass and his ability to get things done. And that is really what I'm confident will lead us to where we need to go as a country.
Does Vivek ever frustrate you?
Yeah, I mean, the same guy who thinks that lots of things are wrong and he has to fix them, yes, that sometimes in a husband can be annoying. It's like every light bulb that's flickering or oh my goodness. He's never the one who I can just say, can you just chill out? But no, that's just not who he is.
What is your favorite quality about Vivek?
He's just the best dad. That's my 100% favorite thing about him. You know, he loves Karthik and Arjun so much, and I think they get frustrated by how much he kisses them. Sometimes he's trying to see how many times in a minute he can kiss them. So right now Arjun's small enough that he can be tackled into that. But that is what I love. He just loves these kids and our family so much, in that strength that I know no matter what happens, I can trust him and rely on him for whatever our family needs. That is the best.
Okay, you'll have to let me know if you're okay sharing this story. How did you guys meet?
We met at a party. Vivek was in law school, I was in medical school. It was my first week of med school, probably one of the last times I went to a party. And it was before our classes started, and I met this guy who just seemed so confident and interesting and full of life. And I thought, I want to get to know him. So I went up to him, said, hi, my name is Apoorva. He said, hi, my name is Vivek. And I said, I just met another Vivek. He was not interested. He actually turned away. But thankfully, we saw each other later that night, and we realized we had a lot in common, and we were actually neighbors. And I don't know, we've been basically together since that first day we met.
I love that. Yeah, so because you talked about that he just has so much energy and just full of life, which I see you that same way. How do you guys do this? Like a lot of people, it's just like, how do you literally go to so many events and you're happy and you genuinely are enjoying yourselves? How do you guys do that?
I mean, at some level, we just love people, and this process is all about getting to meet people, so we love it. It's just what we are enjoying, and thankfully our kids, so far at least, Karthik also seems to enjoy people, so it's working out for us as a family. But that's really why we are doing this. Of course, Vivek cares so much about principles and what is right, and he'll talk your ear off about administrative law and the administrative state, and but at the core, he loves meeting people and hearing what's important to them and seeing how it fits into all the things going on in our country. So I've learned so much. He's learned so much from this process. It's been such a privilege.
What do you guys do with, you talked about the media and things like that earlier, as far as there are just point blank lies out there, and we see it all the time and experience that. What do you guys do with that? Like on a very personal level, when it's, not just like somebody coming up to you, oh, I don't like that, but knowing that it's being widespread, straight out lies. What do you guys do with that? Because at the end of the day, you guys are human. You have emotions just like everyone else. And I think sometimes it's easy for people to see politicians as something other than that. And again, you guys aren't politicians, or becoming.
Obviously,
But what do you do with that?
Yeah, I think one of the most amazing things about media today is that media is not just controlled by the establishment anymore. There's things like social media, there's X, that allow people to connect directly. We don't just have to be in a room with you for us to hear from us directly, but you have this ability, and I think that's why it's so important to preserve free speech on social media. because it takes away that power from people who otherwise want to silence us or tell us what to think or tell us what to believe. And I think that's been the most amazing thing, is that we can just go directly to the people. And I take faith in that. And then, there's only so much you can control in the world. There's, God. And you focus on the things that you can control. And then trust that God and the people of this country are going to find that truth.
That just led me to another question. Are you guys scared? Like, a lot of people would be scared by this. I mean, it's a huge, monumental task. What do you do with that?
I think we were a little scared at the beginning when people were telling us that this is going to be hard on our family. I think that's the only thing that really scares us, is that in some way something is going to hurt our sons. Because for me, for Vivek, that doesn't, people saying things about us, that doesn't bother us at some level, and it can if you're doing this. But the only thing that's non-negotiable is protecting our sons through this. And thankfully, I don't think that that's been an issue, and so that's the only thing that scares me in the world, really, is anything compromising our sons' lives in any way. And that means the future of this country as well. That's what scares me, is that we're going to go in a direction that we have more of these values that we disagree with, where our sons' values and their core pride is being, attacked. That scares us more than anything that happens on the campaign.
That brings up, with kids today, that's one of the, I feel passionate about that myself, is the things that our kids face today are ridiculous. And things that they should not be having to face in school too, no less, inside the classrooms. What would you say to kids today that are just dealing with such crazy things in the classroom, and the adults that are there with them? I mean, God bless our teachers and the things that they have to deal with within the systems and things too. But what would you say to those kids as they sit there, and I feel like they just have to be sitting in the classroom and be like, what is happening sometimes? Mm-hmm. What would you say to them, or how would you speak to a family going through things that happen today?
I mean, at some level, gosh, our children have to be so strong today, more than ever. It's our job to fill them with so much strength and confidence and good values that they can go out and basically go to war every morning, depending on who is teaching them or what kind of environment they're in, and war for who they are and what they believe. And that is, I just say, keep the faith, be strong, and thank you. Thank you for being our future, and please just stay with it. Listen to your parents, and just pray and listen to God.
Do you guys have any questions? Are we good to open it
Yeah,
up for some
that'd be
questions from you
great.
guys?
Thank you for sharing about the businesses that you have had. Are those still going? And if you don't make it to the White House, where are you going after that? And then secondly, how did you get along with COVID and all the mandates and the shots, or whatever you want to call them?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Okay, so there's a few questions there. I'll answer the first one about the businesses first, which is Vivek thinks it's very important that when you are a presidential candidate, you are doing things and saying things entirely based on your morals and your values and what the American people need, and not for any kind of financial interest. So he stepped back from all of his companies. They're still going. They're doing very, very well, in fact. And thankfully he has some wonderful people who are leading those companies. But he is staying totally separate from that, because his entire focus is what is right for all of Americans, not for anyone's bank, and not for our bank account, certainly. This is for everyone's prosperity. So that's number one. Number two was, what will we do if we don't win, if Vivek is not president? And I haven't stopped doing my job. I will continue doing it. We'll live it. We have a wonderful home in Columbus, Ohio. We love it. We love our neighbors and our community. And Vivek, I am sure will find something else important to do. I'm not sure exactly what it will be, but I never really know what this man is going to do. He finds whatever this country needs, and then he does it. So that's that. And then the third was about COVID mandates. And this is so important because it's so crazy to me as doctors, as a surgeon. Every time I ask a patient for permission to do something to their body, I just did a bunch of cases yesterday, and before every case I say, these are the risks, these are the benefits, these are the things we know and don't know. I think that this will be the result of this procedure, but it's up to you. What do you think? Up until the moment before we go into the operating room and they get anesthesia, they have that option of saying, you know what, this isn't for me. They could say, you know what, I'm not feeling good today, I have the sniffles, I don't think today is the right day. That's up to them because it's their body. And that is the most important thing. It's about medical autonomy. You are a human being and you have the right to make decisions about your body. And as a doctor, I think that is the most important thing because I'm certainly not God. I don't know if everything I do is going to help. I know from my experience and whatever research what I think the risks and benefits are, and then I try to help come to a decision on what would be the best thing or the least risky thing for them. And so to take that option away for an entire country based on something that we have not studied as much as any other thing we've done, that is just insane to me. You know, I have so much humility as a doctor because I've seen things go well and I've seen things go wrong. And most of the things that go well are probably more due to God than anything that I've done. And so I think that is just the most important thing. Maybe, you know, especially now, the research seems to show, our sons did not get the COVID vaccine. They've gotten other vaccines, but not the COVID vaccines, because we didn't think that the risks beat the benefits for them. I, for my job, had to get a certain number of COVID vaccines in order to keep my job. So for me, the benefits outweighed the risk, but my husband didn't. And so it's different for every single person, and that is why we believe that in medical freedom. And so that's really how we think everyone should be allowed to make decisions. And for the government to believe or do anything differently is just, it probably should be illegal.
Good.
Hi, Apoorva. Hopefully I can get this question out well, because I was thinking about it last night when I was at the family leader. Your husband, as you know, he shared a very personal story about you and him. Anyhow, you guys can look it up if you want to see it, but anyhow, when he was talking about that, he talked about there was a time you had to wait almost like 3 days to get an appointment when you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So Vivek is talking about that, and when Vivek was talking about that, you could tell in his face that he's like, this is a system that is not working well, and I'm not happy, and I'm calling someone, and I'm getting my wife in there tomorrow. I mean, you could definitely get the impression that he was like very emotional about it taking 3 days for you to get into a doctor. Mm-hmm. My question for you as a doctor and someone who's very knowledgeable about healthcare, Vivek has been very upfront that his campaign right now is about talking about things that the executive can do from day one, and that's perfect. Okay, it has to do with, I mean, you guys can look at his platform. It has to do with, you know, the executive branch, downsizing the executive branch, national security, border security. Those are things the president will do. Okay, but as you know, we all are dealing with a healthcare system that is too expensive, that takes someone 3 days to get into a system. You know, you look at England, we're going that direction where you may not be able to get in at all. Mm-hmm. This is something that deals with you very, very personally. Mm-hmm. And as the First Lady, I'm sure that this is going to be something that you're going to have a say in, and what you know what that is. how does he see fixing this system after the midterms? I realize the first 2 years he's gonna do what the executive needs to do. But after the midterms, you have a legislative branch, you have legislatures that are gonna come in and we can actually do some different things through the legislature that President Ramaswamy is gonna be able to campaign on as you, so I think I got the question out.
Yeah.
Did I get the question out?
I think you did. So basically, I mean, yes, 100%. I could not agree with you more that our healthcare system is broken in so many ways, down to what doctors recommend being too influenced by pharmaceutical companies, to how long it takes to get care, what care is paid for by insurance companies, how much insurance company pays. Everything is broken, and Americans are suffering every day. I could not agree with you more. But every time that the government has tried to do something about it, particularly through the legislative process, what happens is that insurance companies send their lobbyists. These private equity companies that own hospitals send their lobbyists. Some doctors send their lobbyists, some patient groups send their lobbyists, but they're not the rich ones. That's not who has the ability to influence our legislators, unfortunately. So what happens is we get something like the Affordable Health Care Act, which, when you think of it, the idea sounds great. More people having health care insurance. That sounds like a great idea. Better health care. That's not what happens. That it becomes a way for us, as a doctor, the amount of paperwork and the amount of time that we have to spend doing paperwork now has tripled. So that's less time we can spend with patients. The quality of the healthcare insurance is just terrible. The healthcare exchanges are broken. Every time we leave it to the legislative branch, things end up more broken because of the lobbying that happens in our country. And Vivek has a very little faith in the ability of our legislative branch to build new things. But what we can do is take government's interference out. And that's where a lot of his policies stem from, including in healthcare. So taking a lot of the FDA's regulation out of the ability to make drugs, whether patients can get access to drugs, how expensive it is to develop a drug, taking the FDA's interference out of that, taking CMS out of our healthcare system, instead of giving them more money where there's so many billions and billions of dollars being used ineffectively, actually allowing that money to go back to Americans so that we can actually pay that copay and that deductible. That is a lot of what he believes is where we need to go, in the direction of empowering and supporting senators and representatives who are going to help take government out of our decisions. And that's the only way we can actually the idea that we have capitalism in healthcare right now is totally false. It's not capitalist to have healthcare insurance companies. You don't have incentives aligned. Insurance companies don't want to pay for your healthcare. They want to pay for as little as possible. We just want to be healthy and live. And that's not in their interest, because the longer you live, the longer you're going to have to be insured. And so it's just not a capitalist system. And getting more competition and actually restoring something like capitalism will probably not be a great system, but certainly better than we have. But yes, it's a huge priority. It's something that hurts me every single day when I go to work, seeing how broken things are. And he has a lot of work to do.
Good.
One more last question, anybody? Okay, well, if you have questions, are you able to stay? If you want to come up and meet Apoorva personally, take a picture, we can do that too. But I just really want to thank you for your time today, you and Karthik, wherever he ended up, and just helping everybody get a better chance to know you and see who you guys really are. So thank you. Make sure to grab grab some treats for the road too tonight.